What happens when one of television's most fearless hosts decides she's had enough of royal excuses and privilege? What you're about to witness is the moment Prince Harry's carefully crafted public image completely crumbled on live television. Whoopi Goldberg, known for never pulling punches, delivered a verbal assault so devastating that it left the Duke of Sussex in tears, struggling to maintain his composure as millions watched around the world. This wasn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This was a complete demolition of everything Harry thought he could get away with saying in public. Make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below, because what unfolds here will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about this royal controversy. The View studio buzzed with anticipation as Prince Harry walked onto the set, his usual confident stride carrying him toward the panel. The audience erupted in polite applause, but Whoopi's expression remained stone cold as she watched him approach. She had been preparing for this interview for weeks, and everyone in the building could sense something was different about her demeanor today. "Prince Harry, welcome to The View," Whoopi began, her voice carrying an edge that immediately put him on guard. "I have to say, watching your recent interviews and reading your book, I'm curious about something. You've made quite a living talking about your family, haven't you?" Harry shifted uncomfortably, his media-trained smile faltering slightly. "Well, Whoopi, I think it's important to tell your truth, especially when there's been so much misinformation out there. My wife and I have faced unprecedented attacks from the British media, and we felt it was time to set the record straight." "Set the record straight," Whoopi repeated, leaning forward with intensity, "or cash in on family drama. Because from where I'm looking, every time you need money or attention, suddenly there's another family secret that needs to be revealed. How convenient is that?" The studio fell silent. This wasn't the gentle questioning Harry was used to from American television. Hosts, his jaw tightened as he processed her words, clearly unprepared for such direct confrontation. "I think that's quite unfair, Whoopi. My family put me in an impossible position. The institution failed to protect my wife from racist attacks, failed to support our mental health struggles, and when we tried to find a different way forward, they cut us off completely. We had to find ways to support ourselves." "Support yourselves." Whoopi's voice rose with incredulity. "You inherited millions from your mother. You had a trust fund. You lived in palaces rent-free for 30-plus years, and you're talking about supporting yourselves. Do you hear how that sounds to regular people who actually struggle to pay their bills?" Harry's face flushed red, his composure beginning to crack. "You don't understand the pressure we were under, the constant scrutiny, the lies being printed about us every single day. Meghan was having suicidal thoughts, and the palace wouldn't even let her get help. We were trapped." Trapped. Whoopi stood up from her chair, her voice booming across the studio. "Trapped in luxury? Trapped with unlimited resources? Trapped with the ability to do meaningful work and change the world? You want to talk about trapped? Let me tell you about trapped, Harry." The camera zoomed in on Whoopi's face as she unleashed years of frustration. Trapped is a single mother working 3 jobs just to keep a roof over her children's heads. Trapped is someone who can't afford healthcare when their child gets sick. Trapped is living paycheck to paycheck with no safety net, no family wealth, no connections to fall back on. You weren't trapped, you were privileged, and you threw it all away because you couldn't handle criticism. Harry's hands were visibly shaking now, his carefully rehearsed talking points completely abandoned. "That's not fair, Whoopi. Mental health struggles are real, regardless of your circumstances. Money doesn't protect you from emotional pain or family dysfunction." "Nobody's saying your pain isn't real," Whoopi shot back, her voice cutting through his defenses like a knife. "But using that pain to destroy your family publicly, to air every private conversation and grievance for profit, that's not healing, that's revenge. And the fact that you can't see the difference tells me everything I need to know about your character." The other co-hosts remained silent, sensing that this had become something much bigger than a typical interview. Harry looked around desperately, searching for support that wasn't coming. "My grandmother just died, Whoopi. She was the most important person in my life, and I barely got to say goodbye because of this rift that the institution created. Do you have any idea what that feels like?" Whoopi's expression softened for just a moment before hardening again. "I lost my mother to Harry, but I didn't write a book about every argument we ever had or every time she disappointed me. I didn't. Go on television to talk about her private conversations or expose her vulnerabilities to the world. That's called respect, something you seem to have forgotten. Harry's voice cracked as he tried to regain control of the conversation. You're twisting everything I've said. This isn't about money or revenge, it's about accountability. My father, my brother, they all knew what was happening to us, and they chose to do nothing. They chose the institution over family. Whoopi wasn't backing down. Accountability? You want to talk about accountability? Let's talk about the promises you made when you got married. You stood in that chapel and made vows to support the crown, to serve the Commonwealth, to put duty before personal desires. Where was your accountability to those promises? Those promises were made under false pretenses, Harry fired back, his voice growing more desperate. They sold us a fairy tale and delivered a nightmare. Meghan was never going to be accepted because of the color of her skin, and you know it. The racism was blatant, and nobody wanted to address it. Don't you dare use racism as a shield for your bad choices, Whoopi's voice thundered through the studio. Don't you dare cheapen real struggles with discrimination by using them to justify your tantrum. Yes, there was inappropriate coverage. Yes, there were problematic comments. But you know what you could have done? You could have stayed and fought. You could have used your platform to make real change instead of running away at the first sign of difficulty. The audience was completely silent, transfixed by the raw emotion playing out before them. Harry's eyes were beginning to glisten with unshed tears, but Whoopi wasn't finished. You talk about your mother constantly, Harry. You invoke her memory every time you need sympathy. But Diana didn't run away when things got tough, did she? She stayed, she fought, she used her position to help people who had real problems. She turned her pain into purpose, not profit. Don't bring my mother into this. Harry's voice was barely above a whisper, his composure finally starting to completely shatter. You have no right to speak about her like you knew her. I don't need to have known her personally to see the difference between what she did and what you're doing, Whoopi continued relentlessly. She could have written tell-all books about your father's affair, about how the palace treated her, about every private family moment that hurt her. But she didn't, because she understood that some things are more important than personal vindication. Harry wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, his voice breaking completely. She's gone, Whoopi. She's been gone for over 20 years, and I've had to live with that loss while watching the same institution that failed her continue to operate exactly the same way. I couldn't let them do to my wife what they did to my mother. So instead, you decided to do to your family what the media did to your mother, Whoopi shot back without missing a beat. You exposed their private conversations, their vulnerabilities, their human moments, and you packaged it all up for public consumption. You became exactly what you claimed to hate. The comparison hit Harry like a physical blow. His face went pale, and tears began streaming down his cheeks openly now. That's not what I intended. I was trying to protect my family, my wife, my children, by destroying your other family. Whoopi pressed on, sensing his complete emotional collapse. By making sure your children will grow up reading about every private detail of their grandfather's life, their uncle's struggles, their great-grandmother's final years. You protected them by ensuring they'll never have normal relationships with their royal relatives. Harry buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I didn't know what else to do. I felt so alone, so abandoned. Everyone I trusted, everyone I thought loved me, they all chose the institution over me. Maybe because the institution is bigger than any one person, Harry. Maybe because duty means something. Maybe because when you take on responsibility for representing something greater than yourself, you don't get to just walk away when it gets hard. I was never meant for this, Harry sobbed, his voice muffled by his hands. I was the spare, remember? I was never supposed to have to carry this burden. William was trained for it, prepared for it. But I was just expected to fall in line and smile while my life was planned out for me. Whoopi's voice softened slightly, but her message remained firm. Life doesn't care what you were meant for, Harry. Life gives you circumstances, and you choose how to respond to them. You could have chosen dignity. You could have chosen service. You could have chosen to honor your family's legacy while still living your truth. Instead, you chose destruction. Harry looked up from his hands, his face streaked with tears, his voice barely audible. You think I wanted any of this? You think I enjoyed watching my family fall apart? Every single day I wake up wondering if I made the right choice, if there was another way. But you keep making the same choice over and over again, Whoopi responded, her tone now carrying a mixture of frustration and genuine disappointment. Every interview, every revelation, every time you open your mouth about your family, you choose destruction over healing. When does it end, Harry? When does the revenge stop? It's not revenge, Harry protested weakly, but even he seemed to doubt his own words now. I just wanted them to acknowledge what they did wrong, to take responsibility for their part in all of this. And what about your responsibility? Whoopi leaned forward, her eyes boring into his. What about taking responsibility for breaking your grandmother's heart in her final years? What about taking responsibility for the pain you've caused your father and brother? What about taking responsibility for the fact that your children may never know their royal family because of your choices? Harry's breathing became labored, his chest rising and falling rapidly as the full weight of Whoopi's words hit him. My grandmother, she understood. She knew I had to protect my family. Did she, Harry? Or did she just love you too much to tell you how much you were hurting her? Did she just smile and bear it because that's what she did her whole life? Put everyone else's needs before her own pain? The question hung in the air like a knife. Harry's face crumpled completely, fresh tears flowing, as he struggled to find words. She told me she was proud of me. She said she wanted me to be happy. Of course she did, because she was your grandmother and she loved you unconditionally. But love doesn't mean approval, Harry. Love doesn't mean she agreed with your choices. It just means she loved you despite them. Harry doubled over in his chair, overwhelmed by grief and guilt. I can't take it back. I can't undo what I've done. The books are published. The interviews are out there forever. I can't give William his privacy back. I can't give my father his dignity back. No, you can't, Whoopi agreed, her voice cutting through his sobs, but you can stop. You can choose to stop talking about them, stop revealing their private moments, stop using their pain as content for your next project. You can choose to let them heal without your commentary, but they'll never forgive me, Harry whispered, his voice breaking on every word. I've burned every bridge, destroyed every relationship that mattered to me. I'm completely alone now. You're alone because you chose to be alone, Whoopi said firmly. You had a choice between being part of something bigger than yourself and being the star of your own victim story. You chose the spotlight over service, personal vindication over family loyalty. That's on you, not on them. Harry looked directly at Whoopi, his eyes red and swollen, his voice barely a whisper. What am I supposed to do now? How do I live with what I've done? You start by taking real responsibility, not just saying the words, but actually changing your behavior. You stop talking about your family publicly. You stop profiting from their pain. You find a way to serve others that doesn't involve exploiting your own trauma or theirs. But I don't know how to do that, Harry admitted, his voice small and broken. I don't know who I am without the anger, without the grievances. I've been defining myself by my pain for so long, I don't remember who I was before. Whoopi's expression softened for the first time during the entire interview. Then you figure it out, Harry. You do the hard work of becoming someone worth forgiving. You build a life based on what you can give to the world, not what the world owes you. And maybe, just maybe, someday your family will see that person and want to know him again? The studio remained completely silent as Harry continued to weep, the weight of his choices finally hitting him with full force. I miss them so much, he sobbed. I miss my brother. I miss my father. I miss feeling like I belonged somewhere. Missing them isn't enough anymore, Harry. You have to decide if you love them enough to stop hurting them, even if it means giving up the only narrative that's made you feel important in recent years. Harry nodded slowly, unable to speak through his tears. The interview had become something nobody expected, a complete emotional breakdown of a man who had finally been forced to confront the full consequences of his choices. I hope you figure it out, Whoopi said quietly, her voice now gentle but still firm. I really do, because this path you're on, it doesn't lead anywhere good. It just leads to more pain, more isolation, more regret. As the cameras continued to roll, Harry remained hunched over in his chair, sobbing openly as millions of viewers watched a prince completely stripped of his defenses, forced to face the reality of what his quest for vindication had cost him. Watched him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. You know what the saddest part of all this is, Harry? You had everything. You had a family who loved you despite your flaws, a platform to make real change in the world, and a legacy that could have honored your mother's memory in beautiful ways. Instead, you chose to burn it all down because you couldn't handle not being the center of attention. Harry's sobs grew louder, his whole body shaking with the force of his grief. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was being brave by speaking out. Brave. Whoopi's voice carried a bitter laugh. Harry, brave as your brother, staying silent while you trash him publicly. Brave is your father continuing to love you while you expose his private conversations. Brave is your stepmother, enduring years of your attacks without responding. You want to see brave? Look at the people you've hurt who refuse to hurt you back. The other co-hosts remained frozen, understanding they were witnessing something unprecedented. In television history, Harry looked up at Whoopi, his face a mask of anguish and realization. I've become the villain in my own story, haven't I? He whispered, the words seeming to tear from his throat. You became the villain the moment you decided your pain was more important than everyone else's. Whoopi replied without hesitation, the moment you decided that your version of events was the only one that mattered. The moment you chose to profit from family trauma instead of healing from it. Harry wiped his face with his sleeve, struggling to compose himself. How do I even begin to make amends? How do I apologize for something this big, this public? You start by shutting up, Whoopi said bluntly. You stop doing interviews. You stop writing books. You stop commenting on every royal event, like you're still part of the family. You disappear from the public eye, and you do the work of becoming someone worthy of forgiveness. But that's my livelihood now, Harry protested weakly. The speaking engagements, the production deals, they're all based on my story, my experience. Then, find a new livelihood? Whoopi shot back. Get a real job like everyone else. Use your hands, use your skills, contribute to society in a way that doesn't involve exploiting your family's pain. You're a grown man, Harry. Act like one. The brutality of her words hit Harry like physical blows. He doubled over again, fresh tears streaming down his face. I don't know how to be anything else. I don't know how to be relevant without this. Then maybe it's time to learn how to be irrelevant, Whoopi said quietly. Maybe it's time to discover that your worth doesn't come from being famous or controversial or even royal. Maybe it's time to find out who Harry really is when nobody's watching. Harry looked around the studio, seeing the faces of the crew, the other hosts, the audience members, all staring at him with a mixture of pity and discomfort. I've humiliated myself completely, haven't I? You've humiliated yourself every time. You've spoken publicly about your family for the past few years, Whoopi replied. This is just the first time you're seeing it clearly. The silence stretched on, broken only by Harry's quiet sobs. Finally, he spoke again, his voice barely audible. What if they never forgive me? What if I've lost them forever? That's the risk you took when you decided to air their business to the world, Whoopi said. That's the price of the choices you made. You gambled with their love and trust, and you lost. Now you have to live with the consequences. Harry nodded slowly, the full weight of his situation finally settling on him. I thought I was protecting my family, but I was really just protecting my ego, wasn't I? Now you're starting to understand, Whoopi said, her voice softer, but still firm. Your wife and children deserved protection, but not at the cost of destroying everyone else you claim to love. There were other ways, Harry. There are always other ways. As the interview drew to a close, Harry remained a broken man, his carefully constructed public persona completely shattered. The prince, who had walked onto the set confident in his narrative, left as someone forced to confront the devastating truth about his choices. The truth that Whoopi had forced him to confront was devastating in its simplicity. He had gotten everything. He thought he wanted the sympathy, the platform, the freedom to speak his truth. But in the process, he had lost everything that actually mattered. So what do you think? Did Whoopi go too far, or did Harry need to hear these hard truths? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more explosive celebrity confrontations that you won't see anywhere else.